Good afternoon, everyone, and to this week's Spark user drop-in session. This week we're talking about different audiences looking at processes, basically. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to look at those sorts of different people that are looking at processes and the relating sort of information off the back of that. We'll have a sort of a chat about what the goal is, and then obviously we'll look at some of the features, some of the ways of implementing what we talk about. You'll notice two things on there. There is a question at the front, so have a think about that. You can start putting things in the chat, please do. And I've put a little a sneak peek, possibility of a sneak peek at a upcoming feature which talks to this topic quite nicely. I don't think anyone on the call will have seen or heard, well, maybe actually. But yeah, Colin's on the line, and he's going to tease us with some cool new stuff coming out from the development team. I like putting that sort of thing in here. It's a good reason to stick around till the end, not only for Chris's questions, but you might see something that you're not expecting to see. So one process with different audiences. So first question I've got for you. If you sat on one of my drop-ins, I do like to ask questions. I do like feedback. You can shout, you can put it in the chat. We will listen and bring it part of the session. But who are the different people or different teams that use processes in your business? Anyone want to get us started? Don't be shy. IT. Colin says IT. That's a good group. Yeah, they're sort of quite interested in. Well, they'll have their own processes, obviously, but also interested in sort of what systems are being used, perhaps. And
finance, procurement. Yeah.
Chat is turned off for this meeting. At least that's on my screen. Is that something that you can permit?
No. Chat should be working, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. Everyone's now going to test it by doing that. That's a good thing. External, Julian, brilliant. External auditors, engineers, yeah, those end users, and people actually having to run processes. Quality and compliance, love it. Yeah. Last chance before I show you my little list. Project managers, yeah. Clinicians accessing patient health records. Yeah. Project delivery perspective, builders, QA, product owners, client finance, great. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, great. All great suggestions. And this is not about having a holistic list. It's basically to sort of illustrate that it's a wide audience. Yeah. Alistair, everyone. Yes, exactly. Thank you. He's my plant in there, in the audience. Everyone will be touching processes, even if they don't realise it. And so I've got a few here, and again, this is not supposed to be holistic. It has a bit of overlap, but you've, as I expected, built out suggested ones that I didn't even put on my list. But you've got transformation teams that could be digital, organizational. We've got CI. I put CI in here just to show off. If you're not using the glossary yet, that's a great little feature. So there's continuous improvement teams that are helping the business to find those efficiencies and drive that culture of change. We've got HR, IT. I think we said finance. Engineering. All these operational teams. Quality and compliance, I think, is a really interesting one because they've got a very vested interest in how the business is operating, and I think. Julian, you said about external auditors, that kind of feeds into that as well. How do you improve to other bodies, external bodies that you are compliant, that you have got a handle on your processes, and then again the etc. Because you suggested ones. There are a million other ones, maybe not a million, but there's definitely other people, other teams that are using it. And then on the right, I just wanted to illustrate, and again, this is not supposed to be perfect. It's just to show that the different forms that process comes in. Some of the words you might see, and some of the sort of assets that you might see, everything from customer journeys to those job specs to training guides, and you can see SOPs, standard operating procedures, again just showing off the glossary again in there. And what I wanted to illustrate by connecting these audiences up to the types of assets, it's a mesh, it's a spider web. Different teams will be looking at different assets for different reasons, and again, if you don't have a single way of looking at this or a one process, it can lead to all sorts of things. Again, if you want to add your thoughts on what this can lead to, but my top ones, there's lots of versions of the same process. You will have training documents, testing scripts, SOPs, operational manuals, all talking about the same process or even parts of the same processes. But they're different versions, in different formats, and so it can be quite hard to find the right information at the right time, or you could find out way too much information, at the right time as well, and that leads to confusion. How do you make decisions in your business? How do you actually train? How do you improve if you've got this spider web, that we're looking at here? Everyone agree with that? Everyone seen that? I'm sure in your own organisations. I know I have. Yeah. And so really, it's about, wouldn't it be nice if we had, I'll click on here, a single version of the truth. Yeah. So we have one version of the process, of that information, or one way of getting to that information, so that everyone's looking at the same thing. Not saying it's easy, not saying there's a silver bullet in there, but that really should be the goal. Really should be what we're driving to, not creating our own versions of everything, and for our own myopic purpose. Okay, and then how do we look at that? If I come back up to the top, how do we see the world then? So if I take that previous one, what we do as Spark is we put processes at the middle of it. Yeah. And so we use the process, the visualization of how the business is operating or needs to operate, and we start to hang all the other information off the back of that. So you start to see this. It's that single place to go, that single path to go to find out what it is. So if you're IT, you can come to the process library. You can start to see the job specs. And again, what I haven't got here is the technology landscape. What is the technology landscape? You can pull that out of Spark, but it's hanging off the process. Or you can start from the right. You can start to look at the SOPs. What's the context of where those SOPs are used and who's using it? If you've got that joined up model, that single version of the truth, you can start to have those conversations, start to answer those questions. This is what we're trying to drive to. This is our using our experience and our tool sets. This is how we see the world. So let's have a quick look at some examples, and then I'll hand over to Colin. Do fire your questions as we go through. If you've got questions relevant to what we're sharing, I'll answer it, or we can park it to the end. So I could spend the next 20-30 minutes doing a demo of Spark, but that's not what this is about. But I just wanted to pick out a couple of use cases. Here's my repository, my demo library. I'm just going to use landing pages. Can be a really good way of getting to those one processes. That single version of the process. I know for a fact a few people on this call use them, in their organizations. This is just one example. And they're branded up, obviously, as well as sorry if I went too fast, as well as having the search features, using these to come down to a process that we can start to look at. And this is a simple example. So we'll have the capture and process employee expenses. Many of you will have seen this demo content before, but it's just to pull out a couple of key facts here. This is approved. It's version controlled. So everyone's looking at the same up-to-date version. They're not looking in whatever one was emailed to them in their inbox and that they can find. And also touching on that, it's worth noting, if you are going to have one process for many audiences, making sure that those different people are involved in the life cycle of the process is key. And how would you do that? You'd make sure that you're using the reviews in the right manner. So if you have a single operational process, but the quality and compliance team need to have their input and need to make sure it's fit for their purpose, they need to be involved. When it's changed, when it's updated, when it's published, before it's published, ideally, they're in the loop, so they can have their thing. Sorry, if I can just mute someone. Bang, right. And again, you've got to kind of now we're looking at those different audiences in mind. You can start to see some of the content that we put in here, or how we hang that information on a process makes more sense. So the boxes and lines aren't changing, but you can see, just having the systems here, being able to click, hover over that. Those people have noticed you can do that these days, but you can open the system description straight from here. So we can start to say, actually, so if I'm IT, we're using Concur. I did not know we were using Concur. Where else are we using it and who's using it? We can get that information out very, very easily. So we can start to see what processes it's in, And you can see I've used it in a drop-in before, what roles, etc., and what systems and the like, and we can start to click around that. So again, you're looking at the information that we're just laying on to these processes for our library. Also, when you start to look at the attachments, we can start to see some examples of how training content, SOPs can be embedded. So we've got in this example, quite simply, just a video. And we've also got a link to the SOP that might help the person do this specific task, as well as in this case, just a link to the system that's going to help us do that. And then the big red box here, why is this red? Well, if I click on here, we'll see this actually got a control point against the process. So again, that quality team, this is an important step here. You can start to see some of the extra information we can put in. I've got a little style rule that turns the activity boxes red if a control point is put onto the process. So again, just making it more visual. You don't have to use that, but often it's desirable. And it's just bringing light to the fact that there's a compliance step in here. So maybe if you're a part of the CI team, looking at how we can streamline this process, and actually we're spending a lot of finance admin's time reviewing expenses. Why don't we eliminate that task or reduce it? We understand the context of why it's there. It's keeping someone out of jail, perhaps, or protecting the business from fraud or the like. So again, that's one of the benefits of joining these worlds up, is that you're getting all the different contexts, or getting all the context in one place. So when you are making a decision about how to go forward, how to improve, how to change, you're getting that complete picture. Which, if everyone had their own different versions of it, that would be not impossible, but that'd be very difficult to do. So, this isn't about going into a full feature demo. That's not what this session is about. It's just sort of illustrating the fact that actually having that single version of the truth, where lots of different audiences can come into, is the goal, basically. Right. If I just go back to my holding page using the quick shortcut here. Colin, are you free to demo the upcoming feature?
Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect. Perfect. Just checking before I went into it and tease it. So, obviously, having one process is great, and again, I know a lot of you are part of UK businesses, and so the audience of people that are looking at the content are going to be English speaking, at least. But actually, what we're seeing more and more of with global companies, global rollouts of process libraries, is the need to have different languages managed in that process. So pretty fundamental. If you've got different teams looking at the same process, they need to be able to understand it. Not everyone is going to be speaking English, of course. So we've got an upcoming feature around language translations, and managing a single version of your process for different languages. So we're quite excited about that coming up, and that's where I'll hand over to Colin before I say something I shouldn't, and he can.
Thanks, Chris. So indeed, the ability to display processes for different audiences, and as Alistair pointed it, everyone is the target audience. There's making the local audience aware that a process exists, not only in the different languages, but also for regulation purpose that may be required to actually have different versions in languages. So here I have my traditional process in English. We have a new icon that exists in this workspace where I can show I'll have different languages displaying. So here now I can see the same process, but in French. So we call it a partial translation in this case, because it's not been fully validated, but we can already see some texts have been translated to French, some roles have been translated, and in scope, we also have attachments and external links. So if you're pointing, for example, to a policy, let's say HR policy, you can have different version of this policy for different languages. So yeah, this is coming soon, the initial version of that. As you see, it's already working on my computer, so it will take a couple of days now to go through QA, but we are approaching release. We are very excited about this new capability to support global rollouts of Spark.